Hey guys, Steven Martinez with The American Dream. I just want to say a big thanks to all our supporters and fans. It's because of you guys that we're able to keep growing. Having said that, please don't forget to follow and subscribe. It means a lot to us. That's what helps us keep growing. And also, I hope you guys enjoy the next episode. Hey guys, welcome back to The American Dream. I'm here with a very special guest, Candice Thibodeaux, author, founder of Mindset University, and mindset coach. Did I get it right?
Mental Shift University.
Mental Shift University.
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah, you did. You did that. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for coming. I know you reached out through social media, which is really crazy because maybe like 90% of all my guests come through social media.
Yeah.
Having said that, let's start with a little bit about your journey. I know obviously you wrote a book, you have amazing stuff going on, but what led to that, kind of from the beginning?
Yeah, I love that question because I specialize in mindset for a reason because I struggled with mindset. So it was pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, I'm like, man, my mindset has to be able to shift in order to do and become the person I want to be, and also to impact lives. For me, that was such a big deal, but I know if I wanted to be the change that I wanted to see, it had to start with me. So that's when I started writing my first book. I started journaling, creating 3 steps to reshape your mind for a better future. And my book was produced during the pandemic. From there, I realized, hey, there's more to this. There are people who also want to share their stories. And if I could find a way for them to do that and help them do that, then I produced Mental Shift University.
So then take me, I guess, Candice as a kid. How was that how was it growing up in general with everything?
Yeah, so I grew up loving music. I'm like a big music girl, dancing.
What type of music?
Any type of music actually. Like it can be country, it can be reggaeton, it could be rap, it could be hip hop, whatever it is, R&B. I'm just a lover of music. And I used to perform with my friends, singing in dancing groups, and I'm like, I love to entertain. I love to be there and make people smile and help them get out of like a funk. But I realized I'm not the best singer. So I was like, I can't be a singing star, but I knew I wanted to be on stages helping people. So a large part of that, my dad was a DJ. My mom has always been entrepreneurial. And so navigating that, I'm like, wow, I want to be able to help people in a way, still be on stage, still be able to do that. And I found a way to do that by writing a book, coaching people, and really navigating a room in that way. I still get nervous being on stage. I still get a little antsy about it, but I know the impact of it afterwards when I see people like, man, you really helped me. Man, I'm battling with addiction, or I'm battling with certain mental barriers, and you really helped me. That to me is what I love and what's gratifying about the work that I do.
Nice. Why do you think people get nervous on stage?
Because they're too consumed with themselves. I think if you are going into any space thinking about yourself, you're going to be nervous. But if you go into a space thinking about how you can serve other people, your nerves go away. Because now I'm like, how can I serve you? And if I'm outside of myself looking to serve you, the nerves go away because it's not about me anymore. So I think a large part of that is why people get nervous, because they're like, what am I going to say? Am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to piss people off, right? Like, am I going to make people go crazy on the internet and start having people troll, right? So I think a large part of that is not being authentic in your journey. There you go. Right? Yeah. And knowing that you're there to serve people and you're there for a purpose.
So was this your first business venture, like branching out, or?
I tried a few things. I started a candle in-home fragrance line just because I love candles, but I realized that was also a selfish endeavor. Like, I still want to do that, but I know that my work is more meaningful and purposeful right now, and I could always revisit in-home fragrance line or in-home luxury care. So not my first, but my first meaningful and successful work. For sure.
And then I know you mentioned 3 steps, right?
Yes.
What are the 3 steps?
Yeah, so I named one of them. One of them is authenticity, awareness, and application of knowledge. So in order for you to even shift your mindset, you have to be real with where you are. If you're in a journey where you're like, I was told growing up that money is the root to all evil, you're going to believe that, but you have to be authentic knowing that hey, I believe this right now, but I have the propensity or the ability to change, right? And then that awareness, why do I think like this? Who taught me that? Who's pumping, what am I listening to? What are my ear gates listening to? What are my eye gates seeing? Who am I around? Your company matters, right?
Yeah.
So awareness is big with mindset shifting. And shifting your mental, and then application of knowledge. So you can go to all the conferences, all the coaching, mentorship, but if you're not applying anything that they're telling you, you're not going to be successful. It's just like reading a book, and you can read my book and not apply anything, and you'll be right back where you are in that same mind cycle.
So were you in a point in your life where I guess you learn like yourself those 3 steps?
Yeah, for sure. So pre-pandemic, I would attend conferences just trying to become a better me and just navigating how can I personally grow and develop. Why is it my environment? I don't see certain role models in my environment. Then I started being in rooms with people who have successful marriages, successful families, successful businesses, millionaires, some almost billionaires, and the mindset was different. So I started saying, you have a scarcity mindset. You have a fear-based mindset. You don't trust. Why is that? Where did you learn that? So being real with where I was, I started journaling. And from there, I was able to shift my own mindset, but I had to continue to pay attention to my awareness. The moment I started to shift my mindset, my friends changed, my environment changed, and my business changed. I started seeing growth in my friendships, growth in relationships with both platonic and romantic relationships. And my environment all around changed. People who want to grow, people who want to be successful, people who are not scared to trust and develop meaningful relatielships.
So when you're in the room with those type of people, like let's say the millionaires, billionaires, what type of specific mindset do they have?
They're very disciplined, and that was something that I lacked. And I am working on till this day with like fitness. I started going to the gym. They had really solid routines, and my life was more like wake up, go to work, sporadic, didn't really plan it out. And they were very intentional. So that intentionality plus discipline, I realized that was like the crux of why they were successful. And so once I started seeing that, I'm like, oh, let me master those steps first, and everything else will follow. If you're able to discipline yourself, if you're able to be intentional with your steps and be real about where you want to be, and don't BS yourself because you're lying to yourself and you're not going to get to where you want to be, then you can become successful. And so I'm navigating that and continuing to navigate and unlearn certain mindset habits that I created for almost most of my life, right?
So where does this passion come from? Not a lot of people think that way. What makes you want to kind of be a spokesperson and an advocate and create change like that?
Yeah, for me, I cannot stand any form of bondage, whether it's spiritual bondage, mental bondage, physical bondage. And what I mean by that is being a slave to a system or ideas that were put on you rather than created. I believe, I'm a woman of faith, so I believe that God put us here to have freedom and autonomy to think how we want to think, move how we want to move, and you have choice whether you want to believe in him or not, whether you want to do things or not. But I realized living in certain neighborhoods, there's a barrier, a bondage that is over the mind first, then it overtakes your soul and your spirit, and you don't feel motivated to chase after your dreams anymore because you're defeated mentally, you're defeated spiritually, you're defeated emotionally, and then you don't have any type of mentorship around you besides what you see on TV. And so for me, I'm like, I want to be able to help people get out of that, because if I could do it, and I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be, but I know if I could get out of it, you can too, because we bleed the same. We're both people,
Absolutely.
Right?
So let's do a scenario, I guess. So let's say I'm a kid and I'm growing up in a tough environment, but in this scenario, like it's out of my control, right, where I live, where I grow up, and all these variables that are coming into my life are impacting me in a negative way. How can I shift that mindset when things are out of my control in that specific case?
Yeah, two things come to mind. Number one is I would try to get into environments that you want to be a part of. So whether that's seeking mentorship, finding someone that you know who doesn't live in that environment to have exposure, because I believe exposure has influence on your mindset. And if you cannot do that, because that's not always available, I believe that as adults or children, we lose sight of imagination. And I really think that, as simple as that sounds, if you spend time imagining yourself in your environment being better than what it is, you'd be surprised on how quickly your mindset could shift and how quickly you're able to shift your environment in the places that you attract. So I'm big on imagination. We should always have childlike imagination. I think as we get older, we lose sight of that because it's like, oh, that's for children. Oh, little kids do that. Little girls are playing with Barbies. Little boys are playing with their army men, and they're imagining a scenario. You just have to use that and utilize that part of your brain, and you'll be surprised on how quickly it'll shift you from that negative space.
So would you say, I'm a really big advocate on law of attraction and manifesting things. Would you say that kind of goes on hand with the three types? No, because I believe, again, I am called to a higher power, which is God, and I believe that in addition to you having freedom of will power, there's also the will of God. And so I do believe that God can manifest something in your life, but I don't think that people have the power or ability to do it. I think a lot of times that's ego that we operate in. Oh, we can attract that. But did you attract it, or did God attract it for you? Yeah. So sense. I think we sometimes don't give credit where credit is due, and that's just because of my beliefs. Again, it's not for everybody, but I do believe that there's a God of this universe, there's a God of this planet, and He has the control to open up doors for you. But you also have to do the work. So 100%. When you say aligned, I believe the work is aligned, because faith without works is dead. You cannot just dream something. You have to put in the steps to do it, and then God will open up the doors for you, for sure. I like that.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question. So I was kind of thinking about the book and the 3 steps. Are they all the same when it comes to like different stuff? Like, let's say business, personal life, relationship. Like, let's say I'm going through a relationship. Can I apply that if I'm going through a breakup or something?
Absolutely. So I use my scenario. So I was going through a breakup with a guy I was with for 4 years.
Oh gosh.
And it was a really rough spot, but I had to be aware, authentic on what happened, because a lot of times we leave relationships with a victim mentality and saying like, what did this person do to me? I'm hurt. Why didn't it work out? And you're like, woe is me. But if you apply the 3 steps and you're like, let me be real. What happened here? Yes, this person did this, but what responsibility did I have in the situation? Because it takes 2 to tango. It's not just one person. And just being authentic in that, then being aware, what can I do differently? What areas did I lack? How did I not support this person? How was I not emotionally mature to be in this relationship with someone who may have been emotionally mature, or they went to therapy? And then applying those things throughout your next relationship, because you go into every space becoming a new person because you learn from that mistake. But again, if you're applying, and I use mistake lightly because it doesn't have to be a mistake, it's just a learning lesson. But if you're going into a new relationship and you're doing the same thing that you did in your last relationship, it's going to fail. You got to learn to apply what you learn and know that it's not always the other person. It's a large portion of it is you.
So what's the plan in, like, I guess the next 5-10 years with what you're creating? What's the ideal goal?
Yeah, so right now, Mental Shift University is helping people with mindset, but we also help people use their stories and turn it into a profitable and successful online brand. So I believe everybody has a story. It starts with shifting your mindset, but nobody cares about your story, right? They want to know how your story can help them. So it's a part of, it's the truth, right? Like, if you think about it, it's like no one really cares about your story. They want to know, how is your story going to benefit me? Because we're innately selfish. That's just human nature. We want to know how it can benefit. So my goal is to have more authors, more people come out of their stories with a renewed mindset to help other people and get on more stages and help people in that way as well. So that is my 5-year plan. 10-year goal, I'm still working on that.
So moving forward, I guess I'm really intrigued in understanding the 3 steps. So we understand it from a relationship perspective, right?
Yep.
But then talk to me, how can I apply that for a business perspective?
Yeah, so I love this question because every business is different. Every business's journey is different. If you're just starting out, being authentic on like, what is it that you want to accomplish? Being real, is it realistic? And then we talk about like SMART goals. SMART goals help you specific, measurable, attainable, like time bound, relatable. Like, are you able to make your goals a SMART goal? Being authentic on where you want to take your business. Who do you need around you to make that goal happen? And then that awareness, okay, where can I go? What places can I plug into? Who can I serve? And then applying the things that you learned. So it's a repeated cycle. It's so simple, but oftentimes human beings negate simplicity. And my goal is to keep it simple.
Why do you think we do that?
Because we're thinkers. Our mindsets are complex. We try to outthink what has already been done. We think that there's something new under the sun, and there's really not. There's innovation. I think that there are people who innovate to the level of creativity, but if you really look around, something has been done that you did. And you just have to be a good student of what you want to do. And being a good student means studying that craft, studying that person, studying the steps, and then becoming an expert at it. Putting in your 10,000 hours. People don't want to put in time to change their mindset as well because it's not an overnight thing. But it is attainable with these 3 steps. It is very simple if you keep it simple that way. We get so wrapped up on, the prefrontal cortex and cognitive behavioral therapy and neurolinguistic programming. And like, we want to sound, it's really all simplified. I try to oversimplify it so that way a small child can understand. And the more you simplify work, the better teacher you are.
So what's your opinion on that, like neurolinguistic behavior, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think it does work.
Okay.
And if you don't get to the root of the problem, again, that authenticity, right? That's the groundwork. It's the core. That's why my book is called Core. Yeah. It's the core, getting to the root. You could do neurolinguistic programming. You can say all these things, affirmations, right? I believe in saying affirmations. But you can't put affirmations on top of baggage. Right? You can't put a Band-Aid on a wound if you're trying to heal it. You have to let it air dry. You have to get to the root. You got to put on ointment. You have to cure it before you can put a Band-Aid on it if you want it to be healed, if you want it to be cured. And it's the same thing with your mind. If you have something that's deeply rooted in your brain, you have to be aware and you have to be authentic. Where did this thought come from? Why? I'm saying I am a millionaire, but my money habits are terrible. You're spending every single week. You're not getting to the root of the problem. Once you are able to fix that root, you're able to shift your mindset, and it takes time. And I think if anybody could hear me and leave with that don't be so hard on yourself, because it does take time, but do the work that is required for you to shift your mindset.
So what's the first step in the process of healing when it comes to, like, let's say I know my skeletons, I know my demon. How do I guess surpass that? How do I overcome that?
Yeah, journaling first, therapy, and then talking to God.
Okay.
Those are the 3 areas. I think when you see your thoughts on paper, we got a lot going on here. Sometimes the thoughts are looped. If you're like me and you're a little crazy like that, you get looped thoughts, and it's like happening over and over and over again. So you got to write it down, visually see what you're thinking about. You'd be surprised. Oh my gosh, this is what I thought. And then write down, what do I want to think? Okay. What do I think now, but what do I want to think? That desire. And then if you're realizing that you can't get to the destination, then you need therapy to go back into your past to say, why am I not able to move forward to what I desire? I need to figure out what happened to me as a child. When did this happen? Am I stuck in that time zone, like time frame? Because when you have trauma, you get stuck in those time frames. You're like, I'm still stuck at 5-year-old me because of what was said or done to me. I need to heal that to then get right back here on my thought and then go to the thought that I want to achieve. So it's a process like that, and you can't do any of that without God.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what if I don't have money for therapy? Let's say someone doesn't have money for therapy.
That's when cognitive behavioral therapy comes into place. And so that part of journaling is important as well. So doing that exercise. So if you're like, okay, what is this thought? How do I fix it? If I'm not able to fix it here with therapy, then how do I retrain my brain? And you got to come up with like the exercises. Okay, every day I'm going to work on this thought process. Every day I'm going to say this affirmation. Every day I'm going to look in the mirror and say, why do I think this way? Because then you start asking yourself questions. And I have a list of questions in my book that, why do I think this way? Who taught me this? Where did I learn this? To go ahead and unpack that. So if they don't have therapy, they can always buy my book.
There you go.
Shameless plug. You can always buy my book, and there are questions in there and there are activities in there to get you through the process as well.
Got it. No, that's great. So would you say that most of the trauma, like I guess for most people, comes from childhood?
Yes, in adulthood. I think it's a journey. I think there are people who go through trauma as adults. Okay. I think we went through trauma during 2020.
How so? With the pandemic? Why do you think it was so traumatizing?
Because it was unfamiliar and people didn't know how to navigate something new. And if you're used to doing something in a routine and something interrupts your routine, that could be traumatic. People are learning how to navigate with people with sickness. I could die. The fear of death. When you're trying to self-preserve, you go into a state of trauma and preservation. And so that trauma does stay with you. And you're trying to navigate those feelings. So I don't think it all has to do with childhood, but I think depending on how you dealt with trauma in your childhood, you could see how you're dealing with trauma as an adult. It's a reflection. So if you're a person who's, I'm gonna fight, flight, or flee, like whatever it is, if you're a runner and you're like, I need to abort mission, then you'll probably isolate. If you're a person who's like, I'm a fighter, then you're gonna try to fight through and you're overly doing something in your body. You don't realize that you're changing the chemical balance in your brain, you're living under stress, now you have disease. So that trauma, all of that is all inside your mind and all inside of your body.
Would you say your mindset is embedded this way and your trajectory with your career is this way because of the way you were raised?
Yes, largely so.
How were you raised?
So I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I grew up in the hood. So the child that you mentioned, if they grew up in an environment and they didn't have anything around them, they didn't have positive environment, that was me. Okay. But I had role models, and I had television, and I had imagination. Okay. And I think that if I don't regret and I don't wish that I was someone else ever, because I believe a large portion of how I was raised is the reason why I'm gonna go after it. I want to change and I want to help people. I think anybody who grew up a certain way, the reason why you're inquisitive is you might have been that way since you were a child. You wanted to discover, you wanted to figure out, maybe, right? Yes, for sure. I grew up that way, and I always was like, I know that this is not my end all be all. I know that there's more out there. I just have to figure it out. Have I figured it out fully? No. But like I said, I'm in a better space than I was before.
Do you think we ever figure it out?
I think life is a lifelong journey. I think I'm a lifelong student. I think the only person who figured it out is God.
I think you're right on that. Yeah.
I think we're all trying to figure it out. We're all navigating a space, and I think those who pretend like they have it all together are not real. They're not relatable either, because people want to know how human you are. You may be very skilled, you may be an expert, talk your talk, be confident, but you're still figuring things out. And I think people want to hear that part of you, because that's what sticks with humanity. And I think with social media and AI, a lot of that is being missed. So conversations like this and podcasts like this are so important, because people are trying to figure it out. And they can figure it out by the questions you ask, the people you interview. There's somebody who's going to resonate with me, and there's somebody who's going to be like, she sucks. I don't like her personality, and that's okay. But you know that there are people out there that you're called to serve. and you're doing the work that's required to have people and help people figure it out.
Thank you. I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Having said that, that's a good point. How important do you think, I know the younger generation, they're always glued. Like, I have like a 2-year-old nephew who's always on his iPad.
Yeah.
But how important is it to really kind of let them understand the power of social media and what they're watching, what they're listening to has a really big impact in their lives without them knowing?
I believe that there's timing for that. If you're younger than 5, you have no choice. Put it down. Yeah. Like, because I think also adults are afraid to be adults these days and like really guide children. It's like gentle parenting is a thing, and I'm not a parent yet, but I've seen it where kids have freedom, and they should, but I also think that they need to be guided by adults. We're the adults. Like, we are. Like, we should crazy. Be guided. For sure. Like, we're the adults in the room, and we have to like guide children, right? And I think a large portion as they get older has to do with their environment and their sphere of influence. So they're going to be glued to social media. But having the conversations about them being true to themselves, I think the way they can navigate that is if you're telling your nephew, regardless of what's going on out there, who are you? And if they have a sense of identity, if they have a sense of the core of who they are, like I'm Candice to the core. You can't shape, you can't change, you can influence me, but I know who I am. And I think a large portion of that will help them navigate social media waters. They're able to go out there, see things that happen, see trends that happen, but they're not subjected to it if they don't want to. Now, if they choose to participate in it, that's on them because they chose. But because they have a sense of identity, they won't always participate in the social media if they don't want to. It's like you're building leaders, and I think we need to continue to build young leaders. That's our responsibility as adults.
I love that. I love one part you said, I am Candice, I know Candice.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in general miss that identity. And I say that in the sense where, let's say you go somewhere, 90%, 95% of people aren't authentic to themselves. They have I don't want to say an identity crisis, but almost an identity crisis. How do I come to a moment with myself where I'm like, okay, like I need to be true to myself. Like, who am I? Who's Steven? Who's Candice? How do you get to that point? How do you find that?
Yeah, we talked a lot about childhood on here today.
Yeah.
For me in my journey, I realized that there were core principles that my mom, my dad gave me, and I had the choice. My parents are always like, you have the choice. We can give you, it's like, we can bring you to the water, we can't make you drink.
Yep.
So you're able to do that by knowing what's important to you. Why is that principle important? Do you have certain values? Like, a lot of people are afraid to even say like they believe in God because of the way the world is now, and you have to be solid on who you are. And I think a large portion of that is as you get older and being in spaces and you start realizing, I only know how to be the best me. I can't be you. And every time, and I'm not going to say I was always like this, but every time I tried to be someone else, I failed. Every time I tried to walk into a room and put on a front, I failed. It wasn't, they weren't vibing with me. They're like, you're fake, you're this, oh, you're trying to be like this girl, you're not yourself. The moment that I put on me, the best way I know how, I realized that's the secret sauce, that's the juice. Because no one else has my fingerprint, no one else has my personality. I could resemble someone. You can be like, you remind me of this girl, but that girl's still not me. And I only know how to be the best me possible. So I think that realizing what your core values are, what your principles are, being okay with being an outcast sometimes because you may just be that. If you walk into a room and you're the one who's, maybe you like cheese pizza and everybody else likes pepperoni. Are you okay with liking your cheese pizza and being okay, or are you going to switch over to pepperoni all of a sudden because you want to conform? And I think human beings have the proclivity to conform. We want to be liked in community. Proclivity.
It's a great word.
Thank you. Yeah. We want community. It's in us. Yeah. I want to be liked. I want to be desired. I want to be loved. God put put that in us, in our DNA.
But see, now I would say now there's a fine balance of wanting to be liked, but then also being authentic to yourself to where you don't care about other people's opinion.
I think there is a balance of that. Because there is a likability, especially in business. People do business with who? People they know, like, and trust. So there is a likability factor. But when you're bending over to be liked by somebody so much because you want business from them, now you're not being true to who you are. You're not for everybody. Right? Rolls Royce is not for everybody.
That's true.
Apple is not for everybody. There are people who love Samsung. You got to be like, no, where do you want to position yourself in the world? Where do you want to position yourself in the marketplace? Who do you want to attract? And the only way you're able to find your tribe is by being you. Just true you.
I have a question. So you said sometimes we pretend to be people that we're not. Why do we do that?
Because we don't know who we are, or we want to be liked. If we know that this person, because they have social proof or social clout, everybody's clout chasing these days. They want to be. You see that person has it. You see that also invites influence, and now the influencer era has been here and will continue to be here. Everyone desires that goal, but they don't realize that influencer is an influencer because they are themselves. And so I think we try to mimic the process instead of actually being in the process. You try to mimic it, you try to be that person because you see the results, but you don't see the work. And I think a lot of times work is outshadowed just by results because you see the highlight reel on social media.
Yeah, they don't know the back end.
They don't know the back end. You don't know if that person is crying every night. You don't know if they're sweating. You don't know if they got $1 in their bank account. You don't know. But you're trying to mirror them so much because you want the end result, but you don't know the work. And if you just stay in your lane and do your job and LeBron your way all the way to the goal, right? Like just be yourself. He's not liked by a lot of people, but he's loved by a lot of people. You have to be okay with that and then saying, okay, at the end of the day, I'll have the result. It'll happen. Maybe not overnight, but it'll happen because your tribe is your tribe.
What's I know the long-term goal with the business side, but I guess personally, what does Candice want to do in the next 10 years?
10 years, I want to impact billions of people. Yeah. And impact is more important to me than income. I think income will come when you create impact.
That's true.
I think for me, it's about the heart of the work. So if I could impact 1 billion lives and people's lives are changed, they're growing, they're sharing their stories, they're writing that book that they always wanted to write, they're hitting the stages, they're going out there to share their authentic story, that to me is a goal. And it's a goal that I can rest in peace and say, God did his thing. I'm good. Yeah.
Would you say that, I guess, when someone has a goal, like for example, a book, that's a perfect example. Not a lot of people publish a book. People say it, or sometimes people do it, but never get to that end goal. What is that obstacle, or how do you overcome that obstacle to really achieve your goals? Because clearly you're a hustler, right? You're doing you got the university, you got the book, congrats by the way.
Thank you.
How do you overcome that as a female entrepreneur?
Like the barriers to getting that goal?
Clearly mindset, but
I think a large portion too is isolation.
What do you mean by that?
So spending time with yourself, blocking out the noise. I think there's a lot of noise out in the world. A lot of influence from your family who are trying to protect you, your friends. Maybe they don't understand what you're trying to do. I was able to do these things because I spent time being alone for a season. I'm not going out. I'm going to lock myself in this room. It's uncomfortable. It's boring.
Yeah.
You don't have a social life really because you're like, this is the end goal. I need to isolate.
Yeah.
And really zone in. Not every day you're going to feel motivated, but you have to begin with the end in mind. And knowing that the end result is I want to finish this book. How the end result is, what do you want? If you go into wanting to write a book with the end result in mind, what do I want people to leave with? The book will become easier, because now you're sharing your story with the end result in mind. What is the goal? Now you're navigating your storytelling ability based off that end result. People are able to leave with something because of you already had the end in mind. So for me, it was isolation, really zoning in, really cutting out the noise, disciplining myself, focusing, opening up my laptop when I didn't want to. I think a lot of times we're feelingsy, especially, and I hate to make it a gender thing, but as women, we are in our emotions. We have mood swings. We have all these things that we are navigating that we don't always want to write, or we don't always want to do a thing, but pushing past the feeling and saying, whose life am I hindering because I'm not going after my yes? Again, it's the people. It's the impact. Me not writing my book, who knows what life I changed, right? I told you, like, there's so many people like, oh my gosh, if I would have kept that book to myself, that person wouldn't go after their dreams. And I think you gotta be selfless, but selfish at the same time. It's like a balance, as you mentioned.
That's a really great point with the isolation stuff too. When you said that, it like quickly clicked on something in my brain when I had a period like that too. I mean, I wouldn't say I was like isolated like for months, but maybe like a few weeks. And then it made me think, you know, the Joker?
Yeah.
He did that, right? He went to the, what's his name? The actor?
I forget his name, but I know he went crazy after. Because
but he isolated him, so he did a great job.
Yeah, he did.
But so I know we're kind of short on time now, but to kind of wrap it up with, I guess, a closing statement for any male or female young entrepreneur, someone young watching it, someone that's aspiring to be their best version. Maybe their situation or the environment isn't up to par with where they want to be, but they want to get there eventually. What would you say kind of as final words of encouragement to them?
I would say be urgent, but don't let anyone rush your process. I believe that there's a level of urgency, especially now. We're living in some crazy times, for you to be urgent in your goals, because life is short. We're here for a split moment. But don't let anyone rush your process. So pace yourself, have a pace of grace, but go after what you're supposed to go after, because God gave it to you and you alone, and only you can birth that dream. So go after it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
It's been awesome.
I
love this one.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for the show. I'll see you guys in the next one.